Hey, I have bad news. Literally when I heard that, like the pit of my stomach just sank. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. Very excited to be filming a new video for all of you. It has been a minute since I filmed a video. You guys have been asking for this video on Instagram. If you guys don't follow me there, I will have my Instagram down here. I am very active on Instagram with you guys. I try to post a lot more frequently on there a couple times a week. But a lot of you guys have been asking for this story time about how we bought our new house. And I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. This video is somewhat anxiety inducing because it was so incredibly difficult to get this house. There was a lot of up and downs, and I feel like ours was like that. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong. So in today's video, I'm gonna walk you through all of that stuff, what I learned, and any tips that I have for you guys. If you guys are new around here, welcome. My name is Andrea. I do videos all about beauty, affordable fashion, and the occasional lifestyle post. If you guys are interested in any one of those topics, be sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure to turn on that notification bell button so you are aware every single time I post a new video. I have a lot to get through. Along the way, I am going to be doing my makeup. As you guys can see, I already did my brows and I have primed my eyes. I'm going to be talking through what I'm using, but not really in so much detail. This is like a get ready with me. So I'm going to tell you my story as to how we got the house and all of that stuff in between. It's gonna be a long video. I really hope you guys enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna do a drugstore look because a lot of you guys really do like drugstore finds. And there's been a couple of things that I wanted to show you or that I feel like I don't show you enough. There are some like hardcore favorites for me. So we're gonna do a drugstore look. So for my eyeshadow, I'm gonna be using this bite-sized eyeshadow Carnival Candy palette from e.l.f. I'm gonna take a big fluffy brush, any crease brush, and then I'm gonna go into this shade here and watch my technique. I'm literally just gonna go like back and forth, and then do small circles a couple of times until I get the color that I want. Let's start from the beginning. There's just so much, like I have no idea where to start. So I guess I should start by saying that I don't think we were necessarily prepared this year to buy a house. So our initial goal was to buy a house, but buy it next year. This year we were going to focus on, you know, we have a car loan, and then we have a little bit of balance on one of Eric's cards. I have a little bit of balance on one of my cards. On top of that, obviously we have student debt because Eric and I were not fortunate enough to have parents who paid our education or get a free ride or anything like that. Like we had to pay for our own college. So we figured, okay, if this year we can like, you know, pay off anything else that we have, like the car loan and like, you know, like I said, credit cards and stuff, we could be better off and then just have student debt for when we buy our house. So we weren't like 100% ready, I guess. We had been saving though, because as I mentioned, we wanted to pay off some debt, and we like we're serious about buying a house next year. So we had already kind of started saving to buy a house. We had a couple of thousand saved in the bank, and then COVID hit, and so we weren't going out, we weren't spending money, so we would just keep like saving more and more. And one day we kind of were just joking with one of our friends who happens to be a realtor about we wanting to look for a house, because what happened was that when COVID hit, you know, we were fortunate enough to not have to ask for like forbearance or like, you know, forgiveness if we miss a payment. We were able to pay our bills just fine and everything. But it kind of sat wrong with me that we were in our apartment, we'd been there 2 years, never missed a payment. You know, we had a payment lock and everything. And like immediately when I inquired about it, because Eric lost his job for 2 months, when I inquired about the possibility, instantly, like within the hour, they responded and they're like, we're not going to be doing any payment forgiveness. If you guys need extra time, that's fine. Well, I guess we won't charge interest, like kind of stuff like that. I wasn't even asking for them to like push it off. It was just like, oh, I just wanted to know like a worst case scenario, and they weren't really accommodating. They had shut down our facilities, obviously, because of COVID for like 4 months. All of our facilities were shut down, so you couldn't use anything. Like we pay so much money for rent in a luxury apartment, paid so much money for amenities, and we weren't able to use them. Kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and so we were joking with like our realtor friend, like, oh, maybe I wish we could buy a house this year or whatever because we have money saved in the bank. We kind of just got into work mode, and she was like asking us all these questions. So moving on, I'm gonna take this palette again, and now I'm gonna go into that shade. I'm gonna go in with like a shader brush, like it's a little bit flatter. This is the JH33, and this one I'm gonna put it in the crease area and then just kind of blend out a little bit above there. And I'm gonna deepen it up here because I'm gonna do like kind of a cut crease kind of style, but you'll see in just a little bit. Talking with her, and she kind of just like ran through some preliminary questions with us. And before you know it, she was like, yeah, I don't know why you guys are renting. Like, you guys are ready to buy. Like, you house within this frame. And then she gave us like a budget. And she's like, with your credit score. I have a really good credit score. Because like I said, we don't have like thousands of dollars of debt or anything. Like, the biggest debt we have is student debt, because that's unavoidable for us. She was telling us, you guys were qualified for a house. You could probably even put down like 3%. And we're like, oh, wow, like 3% of, you know, like a $200,000 or $300,000 house. Do we have enough money saved? And we're like, we do. So we were like, oh, okay. And our lease actually ended in September. So we knew we had to leave our apartment, and we knew that our rent in our apartment was only going to go up. We already paid pretty much a mortgage at our apartment place, and our lease was going to be going up. So we're just like, maybe this is a sign. Maybe we should start looking into a house. Then the next step, she told us, and she's like, to get concrete numbers, I would sit down with like a lender, and then they can tell you like what exactly you qualify for, and what you can expect to pay and all that stuff. So I'm just gonna take another brush, and then everything I'm doing, I'm just kind of blending the top out so that there's not like a super harsh line. But then I'm going to go back into it and then just kind of dab it again here so it can create that darkness. We're like, well, we trust you as our like realtor. Who do you recommend we talk to? Is there someone that like you work with? And she gave us the name of 2 people. And this is going to be important for later on in the story. So she gave us the name of 2 people. She like really recommended this one person, Molly. And we wanted to go with her, but she literally was due to have a baby any day. And being that this was the first time we bought a house and we were like really clueless and didn't know anything, we wanted somebody who was going to be able to like answer our questions no matter what. We went with this other guy, Chaz, and we set up a meeting with him, and we went to our meeting, and he was amazing. He was fantastic. He knew all of the answers that we wanted to hear. He like actually pulled our credit report. He gave us like a hard number we qualified for, which we should be looking for. And he even gave us like a pre-approval letter that day. Told him everything about like our student debt and then like the other little debt that we had. He even told us that we would qualify to put 3% down. So there's different kinds of loans, and I don't know if this varies by state, but in Minnesota there's 2 different types of loans you could do. You could do like an FHA loan, and then the other one is a conventional loan, which is like 5% down. And when I mean 5 or 3% down, I mean like 3% of like, I don't know, 100,000. That's the money you would need to put as a down payment. So, you know, you're talking about thousands of dollars, and it depends on the percentage, and depends on the like house, and depends on the seller, like what kind of house you get. Anyway, he gave us all the numbers, so we walked away feeling pretty confident. Okay, 3% down for down payment, and then 3% down for closing costs. That's X amount of money if we're looking around this ballpark range. Do we have it? We do. And we're like, wonderful. And then we have extra money to like, just in case we need for like payments of things or whatever. Started looking for the house. I should preface that when we met with like our realtor friend, that was like April. And right away she gave us access to this system. I think it's called MLS or something like that, where you can like look at houses. So we had been looking at houses and like viewing houses since like April. We didn't meet with the financial person until like towards the end of May, kind of like middle towards the end of May. So we had been looking at houses, and there was nothing that really kind of stood out to us, and that's why we didn't like rush with the lender to like make a meeting, because we hadn't found like the one. So we kept looking, and then we found a house that we really liked. You're like, oh my gosh, is this it? Like, can we put in an offer? And so we got the pre-approval letter, and it was within our budget, so we put in an offer. We actually offered $10,000 over the asking price, but they would cover closing costs. Apparently our offer wasn't good enough because somebody else got the bid. So we're like, okay, well, that wasn't meant to be. We'll just keep looking for a house. So then that was the beginning of June when we did the offer, and it didn't go through. I'm gonna take some concealer and then a small brush, and I'm gonna do kind of like a cut crease here. And then I'm not gonna do anything fancy. I'm just kind of gonna cut the crease a little bit. The first week of June where we made the offer, and it was rejected. So then for the next like week, we just kept looking. I should tell you that when we made the offer, they told us that it was gonna be a fast close, which means that they had like a date in mind and that it was like non-negotiable. And I think it was like 30 days. I think when they wanted to close was July 10th. But we talked to our realtor and our lender and everybody was on board and everybody said it was fine. So we put in the offer. But anyway, the offer got rejected because somebody else outbid us. The next week we kept looking and we literally didn't find anything. Like not a single house that we liked. If anything, it was like the houses were getting worse. And so we kind of just started thinking like, well, crap, maybe we're not going to buy a house. Maybe we're not going to find anything. So we were kind of like down Friday. So like literally a week after we had put in the offer, our realtor called us and she's like, hey, you know that house you guys put an offer in that was rejected? And we're like, yeah. And she's like, so apparently the loan fell through for the buyers, which means that, you know, they couldn't get the money to finance the house. The seller has asked before they put it back on the market if we're still interested. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like, yeah, we would still be interested. What do we need to do? And she did tell us that, like, again, the only thing is that the closing date has to be July 10th. Like, you can't change that. They want to close July 10th. And again, we thought that we're like, yeah, we got approval. Like, we know what we have for financing, all of that stuff. Let's do it. So we submitted an offer and we did the same offer and they accepted. And so we're like, okay, we're going to buy a house. We accepted the offer. We were like so happy and we were so excited. And we're like, okay, it's a fast close, but we have the 3% down. We have the 3% for closing. So what could go wrong? Okay, so I'm going to take the Revlon Photo Ready Eye Art. I'm going to take this side, so not the glitter side, the other one, and then I'm just going to work that on the lid. I really like these because these have like a doe foot applicator, so you could just literally apply it straight onto the eye. I actually got started with like the whole underwriting process, which is like where you turn in your documents and everything like that. Our realtor is like, hey, Molly, the one I asked you to meet with, already had her baby. This woman's like superwoman. Like she was back at work the next day. She's like, I think you guys should talk to her just to make sure you have everything right. She's great. So we did talk to her. We sent her all the information and we were waiting for her to give us like the pre-approval. And she called us and she's like, for some reason, I can't approve you guys for the loan because of the debt to income ratio and because of the type of house it is, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, can you send me more information? And we were like, okay, that's kind of weird because Chaz, the other guy, had already given us like a pre-approval letter and everything like that. We're just gonna go with him. It's kind of what you do too. You not only like look for a realtor and for the house you want, but you can also shop around with lenders. Like who's gonna be the best lender to lend you the money for your loan. You can also shop around for them as well. We were like, okay, why are we shopping around? Chaz has already approved us. I don't know what this Molly chick is doing on her computer that she's not getting it. Let's just not move it. Let's go with Chaz. And for the first like week or so when we were sending documents to our lender, to Chaz, everything was good, smooth sailing, no issues whatsoever. Fast forward like 2 weeks before closing. Third week of June, like middle of third week of June, everything was fine. And then the last half of the third week of June, that's when like shit hit the fan. So it's now the third week of June and Chaz called us and he's like, hey, we have a problem. We're like, what? And he explained to us that the kind of house, because it's part of a townhome association, they have like strict requirements as to what type of loan you can do. And they don't allow a FHA loan, which is the loan that you can do 3% down payment versus the full 5% down. And so we're like, okay, what's gonna happen now? He's like, well, now I have to approve you for the conventional loan, which is 5% down. And he's like, I've already done that. It's not a problem. We can lend you the money to do a conventional loan, which was great that we were approved for it. But again, when you're talking about $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 houses, changing 2%, that's thousands of dollars, you know? So down payment amount of money, which is the money you have to give at closing, like liquid, it can't be like credit card and stuff, went up by 2%. That's thousands of dollars. And we're like, okay, this is thousands of dollars we weren't anticipating, but it's for our house, it's for the loan, we'll come up with it, we'll be fine. Okay, I'm gonna use a little bit of glitter. This is why I like these. They have the like solid like eyeshadow color on one side, and then you can use glitter on the other side. I'm just gonna do eyeliner quick. And that was the first issue. And then during the week, it was still really stressful because, you know, we would receive all these documents and it was like pages and pages of stuff. And not everything we like completely understood, like where's this number coming from, where is this or whatever. And starting to become hard to communicate with Chaz because after 5 o'clock, he like pretty much wouldn't answer his phone. Like he wasn't on email. We would text him, be like, hey Chaz, Eric just got off of work at 7. Can you give us a call to explain this? He's like, I'm sorry, I'm with my kids right now. We're having dinner. Can I try to call you in the morning or something like that? And we're like, okay, like I get it. You know, he's at home. I don't want to bug him at home. And then in the process, it's like the underwriter's telling us like, hey, we need this like tonight if you want to close by like July 10th. Because like I said, this is already like the 3rd week of June. I'm just gonna do my mascara quick. I'm gonna use this L'Oreal Voluminous mascara and then the I Heart mascara from Essence. I love both of these. And then for my lashes, I'm gonna use these from Coco Lashes. These are in the style Misha. We're like sending the paperwork. It's extremely stressful, but we're okay. We're gonna get the house and stuff like that. And then Monday, so the 4th week of June, on Monday, Chaz sends us like the actual numbers, like what our mortgage rate is and what we're looking at as a monthly payment. It was a little upsetting because the mortgage rate was higher than what we thought. So we called him and he explained to us, you know, it was like the debt to income ratio, like the amount of money I make and Eric makes versus the amount of debt we have. And it factors things in like your student loans, like your car payments, like any health insurance loans you've taken out, everything. It factors all of that stuff in. And like I said, we have some debt, like a normal amount of debt, but we're not swimming in like $60,000 worth of credit cards or something like that. Like we have a normal amount of debt, things that like average people take out. People take out loans for a car, you know, stuff like that. And we make pretty decent money too. So we were a little confused as to like why, but I figured, and Eric figured, that it's probably just due to like, you know, the student debt I have. And like I said, that he had a car loan that we just took out like in November of 2019. So we were just like, okay, I guess this is normal. We'll just do that. And then Chaz started talking to us about buying down points. That's where you can pay a certain amount. And it's like a couple thousand too. Like to buy down 1 point, I think was like $2,000 or $3,000. So you pretty much buy down points. So let's say you're sitting at like 6% for your mortgage rate. You can buy down points so you can pay the lender directly, not like the bank, not for your house payment, like the lender who's lending you money. You can pay them like $2,000 or $3,000 to bring down that mortgage from 6% to like 4% or whatever you wanted. So that's when he kind of started like first trying to upsell us on these points. He was like, oh, don't worry, if you guys want something lower, we can buy down points with us and blah, 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 blah. And Eric and I are like, no, we'd rather not, just because when you buy down points, you're just buying it to the lender. You're not, like I said, putting it towards your down payment. It's not going towards principal. It's not going towards your credit card or anything like that. We asked him, we're like, would it be better if we just actually paid off Eric's credit card? Because in our mind, it was like, if I'm going to pay thousands of dollars, I might as well just pay off the debt that I have. That way it brings up my credit, and then better credit means better mortgage rate. So we asked him, he was like, well, I mean, you could, I don't know if it'll show up in time. You can certainly do that, you know, but we can also buy down points, blah, 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 blah. So he took it as like a, yeah, you can do that and it won't negatively affect you. We were like, okay, he is the finance guy. He must know what he's talking about. So we're like, we'll think about it, and then if we decide to buy down points, we'll let you know. But it was like, that wasn't our number one option. Let's start priming my face while my lashes dry a little bit. I'm gonna use the Ulta Hydrating Face Primer. This is really good. It has coconut water for hydration, and this is very similar to like the Too Faced Hangover RX. I really, really like this. It also has aloe vera and avocado oil to smooth the skin. I think I've told you guys that this house that we bought, even though we really love it and we're very happy with it, it's not our forever home. We're gonna outgrow it in a couple of years, and we're definitely gonna want to move up to a bigger house. You like 50 or 100,000 over what we paid for this house. So we both knew that. So we were like, well, you know, if we have to work with a higher mortgage rate for the next 3 or 5 years, however long we're here, it's not an issue because we're not going to be here forever. So we're like, no, we're going to pass on buying down points. We're okay with the higher mortgage. And then we get to the first week of July, which is also the 4th of July. This is the Catrice Prime and Fine Poreless Blur Primer, Goodbye Pores. It's just a blurring, smoothing, pore filling primer. It's really good though. It really does smooth the skin out really, really nice. And we're sending paperwork along. It's still very stressful because, like I said, it's just a very meticulous process. They ask for everything, like everything, all of your credit card statements, all of your bank statements. It's like 3 months worth of statements and stuff. And then they ask you for explanations as to why there was such large amounts in deposit, and then you have to get your pay stubs. And it's hard too because Eric is commission based. He gets a salary because he is a manager, but the majority of his income is commission. And so it's not like guaranteed or set. And then on top of that, we were running into an issue of like, of course, last year when I was taking the bar and didn't work for 2 months, and it was Eric's like lowest year, the store he's at, like of course that's what they were going off of. It's very like laborious in that sense. For my foundation, I'm going to use the Matte and Poreless from Maybelline. This is such a good foundation. I really like it. It's a matte one, but I don't think it's as like really thick matte. Really like this one, and I know a lot of people really like this one as well, so this is a good one. The first week of July, we're going along in the process. We've had one hiccup. The last Friday in June, Eric had gotten his paycheck, and he got a very good paycheck, and he got paid bonuses. So we're like, hey, if we're having like a mortgage rate issue, have the money to pay off your credit card, let's pay it off. Chaz says that it's not a problem. And so he's like, all right, well, let me give him a call just to be sure, you know, blah, 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 blah. So we called Chaz, and then he pretty much said the same thing. He was like, well, you know, you can pay off your card. It may not show up in time, but it's not going to hurt you. Or you can buy down points, like, you know, just pay us and then we'll bring down your mortgage rate. And again, we were just like, no, we don't want to pay you. Like, we would rather put it on our card, because paying, you know, the mortgage person, yes, it brings down your rate, but then it doesn't impact your credit and you still have the debt, you know. So we're like, no, so we're gonna pay the credit card. Never once told us that like, oh, don't do it, oh, you might need it, or anything like that. So we paid off Eric's credit card in full. We weren't concerned because we had the 5% down, and then they were covering closing costs, so we already knew that we weren't gonna have to pay that. We had already paid the appraisal, we had already paid the inspection, we had already given $2,000 of earnest money, and earnest money is pretty much like money that you give them, ensuring that you're gonna go through with the purchase. We were a week from closing. We're like, okay, even if it doesn't show up in time, that's fine. You know what I mean? That's still one less thing we have to deal with. Fast forward to Wednesday, so a couple of days before the 4th of July, we get a call from Chaz, and he tells us that running into an issue with the debt to income ratio. Mortgage rate went up even more. And we're like, okay, what did it go up to? And according to him, it was like at 5%. And we're like, how did it go from 3.7 to 4% to now 5%? Where are you getting these numbers? And so he explained to us that he had like checked Eric's credit, and all of his student debt is showing up. And Eric doesn't have as much student debt as I do, but he has a couple of thousand in student debt. But I'm on a payment plan, so you don't see my entire like student debt, you just get like a percentage of it. Eric didn't do a payment plan because we've been in forbearance because of COVID. And so his was showing up completely. So it was pretty much like all of his debt and then like his income, you know. It brought it up because of that. Now you're sitting at 5%. And then again, he was like pushing us about like, well, you can buy down points, you know, we're gonna buy down points and then you're gonna bring it down. And we're like, well, can we not buy down points? Like, is that an option? It's fine. It sucks, you know, if we're at 5% of a mortgage rate instead of the 3.7. But again, we just paid off his credit card, and if it did hit, we wouldn't need to buy down points. Again, we just didn't want to give them the money for something, even though it wasn't going to really affect our credit or anything like that. We're willing to put up with a higher mortgage. I'm going to take some of the Laura Mercier translucent powder, and then I'm just going to set my face with it. It's like, well, unfortunately, we can't do that. The lender service doesn't lend money to loans that have a mortgage rate of 5% or higher. I understand, you know, if some lenders are particular, but I don't understand why we weren't told that information in the beginning, you know? And he's like, well, you know, in the beginning we were at 3.7. We didn't have that conversation because it wasn't an issue, you know? But at the same time, I'm like, that would have been something to know because, you know, if we did get caught up in something like that, then we would at least have the option. Because now at this point, we pretty much had to buy down points. Otherwise, that lender, Chaz's place, was not going to give us the loan. That was an extra couple of $1,000s. But we had already spent $3,000 to pay off Eric's credit card. It already went up by a couple $1,000s because we were at 5% now instead of 3% for the down payment money. And now we had to pay a couple extra $1,000 just to have points brought down so that we can get a mortgage rate that the lender is comfortable with to lend us the money. It wouldn't have been an issue if he told us that we had to buy down points before we had paid Eric's credit card, because then he would have it sitting there. So we're like, it's fine, we will figure out how to get the money, you know, we'll pull from a different account that we have, like, we'll figure it out, let's just keep going with the loan. Thursday, everything was fine, no call from Chaz. At 4:30, he sends me an email with the closing disclosures. So the closing disclosures are pretty much like the document that lists out all of the like payments you have made, like all the money you gave already, brought down points, and like all of that stuff. And then at the end, it gives you what's called cash to close, which is the amount of money you need to have liquid. In other words, like not on credit cards, not on anything like that. The amount of money you need to have in your bank account in order to close on that closing day. I get to the cash to close amount, and the amount that Chaz gave us to have in the bank is $3,500 over what we had thought. This was like $3,500 over what we estimated, already kind of factoring in the like points. I knew we had to pay more money to buy down points, but this was $3,500 over that amount. And like I said, this was Thursday before the 4th of July, literally 1 week, 8 days before we close. So in 8 days, we had to come up with an extra $3,500 from somewhere to have liquid and available to transfer to them. Otherwise, we weren't gonna get the house. And so it was 4:30 and he's like, hey, I need these documents signed and returned to me ASAP today that I can send them to the underwriter and they can process it. So I like texted him and I'm like, hey, I can't sign these right now. I need to talk to you. Like, where is this $3,500 coming from? Like, so different from our numbers. And he texts back and he's like, no, this was kind of what we were always estimating. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, we called you, we talked to you several times, and you had never given us like the exact numbers, but based on our calculations of like how much money we already gave down for earnest money, how much you said points were gonna cost, how much all this, like, no, we didn't factor this amount in. We already paid for certain things. Like, where are you getting this from? I need you to call me. And he's like, I can't call you right now. I'm on my way up north for the 4th of July weekend. I was livid. Because how are you gonna give someone a document, expect them to sign it and return to you, not answer any questions, and then you're gonna tell me that I can't talk till Monday because I'm gonna be up north? That's ridiculous. That's insane. So I'm like, well, I need somebody to call me. Can you send me to your assistant or someone in the office? Because I'm not gonna sign this until you explain it to me. And he was pretty much like, there's nobody in the office because of the 4th of July weekend. We're gonna be closed. If you have any questions, just email me. And as soon as I get internet, I will try to give you a call back. So I was really upset. So I wrote him this like super long email with questions. And then I asked like, you know, Eric, my husband, about it, because maybe I was just being dumb and like not getting the numbers. He was also kind of like in shock, like, where is this coming from? Like, how did it get so high? How were the numbers so different? He wasn't really responding. He's like, yeah, I'll call you back when I have Wi-Fi. And then he would say things like, just go ahead and sign and then we can change it later on if it changes. And so it was just like a lot of back and forth that day, and he never called. And it was Saturday and he never called. And Sunday and he never called. So I was really upset and I called my sister crying because I was just like, how is this happening? Like, how are we so far off? And why is every single time we talk to him, it's getting worse? I'm gonna take the Rimmel Natural Bronzer and I'm just gonna bronze my face with that. And then I'm gonna take the Wet n Wild bronzer and then I'm gonna contour with it a little bit. Just kind of felt like really like defeated and embarrassed, because it was like we worked really hard to like have the money set aside that they told us. First they told us it was 3, and then they changed it to 5. Then they said that we're gonna have to buy down points. So we're like, okay, I guess we'll buy them down. We asked him if we should pay Eric's credit card, and he never told us like, hey, no, I would hold on to that money because you're gonna need it to buy down points, or you know what I mean? Like, it was just so many things that he could have told us and it could have been avoided. And I felt embarrassed because it was like, had we not paid off Eric's credit card, I wouldn't have to be running to like my sister or my mom to like, oh, could you help us if worst case scenario we needed it. I felt really embarrassed because it's not their job to do that. You know, my sister was incredibly understanding, and she was like, absolutely, if you need to loan you the money just for a second, just so you can like close and then you guys can pay me back because it's so close, like it's not an issue. And that was the other thing too, like Eric and I could come up with that money, but we just didn't have enough time before closing to do it. You know, if we had waited or continued closing, we could have been fine. And like I said, one of the terms on the agreement was that you had to close on the 10th. So moving closing was not an option. So I felt completely embarrassed. That weekend was like really incredibly shitty. I saw my friends for a little bit, which was fun. They kind of just let us vent about all of our problems with the house, but it was very, very stressful. We were really grateful that our families were going to be able to be there for us and like kind of lend us some money if we needed to. And that entire weekend went by and Chaz never called us and never explained anything to us. So we're like, okay, if our family's gonna lend us some money, let's just sign this, get it to the underwriter so that everything is good and we don't need to send anything last minute before closing, because the next week was gonna be closing. So Monday, you know, Chaz emails saying, I'm sorry, I was with my kids, yada, yada, yada. Said this number, like just some BS excuse that like Eric and I had never heard from him. You know, it was just, it is what it is. We're like, it's fine. We're going to pay the difference. Let's just close. The second we can refinance and get out of the contract with these lenders, we're going to refinance and we're going to go with a different lender. Tuesday morning, like literally at like 8 a.m., I get a call from Chaz. And I'm like, hey Chaz, what's going on? I figured that he needed documents or like some last minute things or, you know, whatever he needed. Get to him later on that day. It's like, hey, I have bad news. Literally when I heard that, like the pit of my stomach just sank. Like even now I kind of get anxious thinking about it, because I'm like, what else could have possibly gone wrong? I mentioned before, we were buying a townhouse. So there's association costs. Association is like the body that runs the entire townhouses or whatever, and you pay them a certain amount monthly and they take care of like the landscaping and stuff like that. So we knew about what the association costs were gonna be. Our realtor knew about what the association costs were gonna be. Apparently everybody and their mother knew what the costs were gonna be except Chaz. Like, so I was doing the final loan disclosure and the association is throwing off your debt to income ratio. And I don't know if that meant that like for when you buy a townhouse, they like put together what it's gonna cost for the year, or I don't know how they do their math for townhouses, but apparently association amount wasn't factored in to our loan. And so apparently it was throwing off the entire calculation. You can only have like a certain amount of like debt to income ratio, like based on their view. If the payment is too high, they think you can't afford it or whatever, so they won't approve the loan. We knew what our monthly payment was, and somehow Chaz didn't know. Okay, so what does that mean? And he's like, it means if we can't come up with more money, like income wise, to prove that you guys can pay it, the loan is gonna fall through. And I'm like, what does that mean? And he pretty much said that we will not be able to give you money for your house and you're not gonna close on Friday. So I was so upset. It hit me like a ton of bricks, and I was really mad because had he not taken off the weekend, answered a single phone call of mine, maybe he could have told us this over the weekend. And so I hung up the phone with him. I called Eric, started crying. I called my realtor, started crying, and I was like really just upset, and I pretty much had given up at that point. I told my realtor, I was like, hey, this is what's going on. She had absolutely no idea because there's confidentiality, so the realtor handles like the looking for houses and stuff portion, but like the finances and your personal finances stay with the financial company. She didn't know everything that was happening with Chaz and how non-responsive he was or whatever, because at the same time, you know, we just didn't want to make a scene until we were done. So I was going to tell her how bad the service was closing, what we went through, but I had to tell her then and there, and I'm like, hey, I need you to call Chaz, I need you to figure it out with him, and I need you to call me back because I'm not talking to him anymore. I need you to call me back and tell me if this loan's not going to happen, tell me today, because I'm not going to waste any more of my time. I'm not going to go look for other documents for you. We're not going to close. That's fine. But just tell me. Like, I had literally given up. She was really upset too. She's like, what the hell? You know, what the F? What is happening? He should know this, blah, 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 blah. And so she's like, let me give him a call and I'll figure out what's going on. Called me back at noon and she was like, hey, so I talked to him and he told me what happened. That's ridiculous. He should have the numbers, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, now it makes sense why Molly couldn't get you guys approved. Remember when we were looking at lenders, that Molly chick, like for some reason it's throwing off the calculation and get you guys approved. Turns out she had factored in the townhome association and everything into costs, and that's why it was throwing it off on her computer too so early on. So Chaz got his numbers wrong. He's like, don't worry, we're gonna figure this out. And so she's like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call Molly. She's like, I told you that she was like my go-to person. She's a numbers person. Let me send her your stuff. Today by 4 o'clock, she's gonna respond if you guys will close, if she can save the loan, or if it's like a no-go. And so I'm like, okay, I mean, as long as you promise to tell me today that whether it's gonna go through or not, that's fine. I forwarded all of our information to her, waiting anxiously in the day. And then I got a call back from her, and she's like, I talked to Molly and she said that she's gonna be able to save the loan. She said that found some way that we can figure this out. She was gonna get more information from us. She was gonna take on the loan like halfway through, send her everything. She did say that obviously we wouldn't be able to close by Friday because it was such short notice and we have to do the full underwriting process again. So she was like, let me call the seller. And literally from 4 o'clock that Tuesday to the rest of the week, it was like night and day. Called the seller and she had asked if we can get an extension on closing because of the situation that had happened with our previous lender. The realtor that was representing the seller was like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and get your extension. We can close towards the end of July. And so our realtor was like, don't you want to ask your clients and see what's going on? And the realtor for the seller was like, no, he is my son. I'll tell him that, you know, we're going to make an exception and it's going to work out fine. So that fell like right into place. And we sent all of our information over to Molly and she started working on the loan information and all that stuff. The only other caveat was that I hadn't finished sending a payment to one of our cards. The only caveat was that we had to send that amount by the time that we closed, which was fine because it gave us enough time to like come up with the other paychecks because now closing had moved. So we said yes, we would do that. She was able to turn the loan around in literally 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, she did more than our previous lender had done, and she got us a way better loan. Ended up being like, it was like this like saving grace kind of towards the end because honestly, we were just like, okay, it's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. Ended up saving the loan. So the next 2 weeks were incredibly stressful because we had to like get all the information, resend it to someone else. We had to make sure we had enough to pay that one card off on top of like closing costs that we had originally set. We didn't have to buy down points or anything because paying off that card meant that our credit would go up and our interest rate would go down. At the end of it, we ended up getting the house that we really wanted to get. We ended up paying more upfront for the down payment and like the payment of the card, but we went from apparently what was 5% with Chaz to like 3% with Molly, which was like complete night and day. Insane how fast all of that turned around. And so in the end, it ended up working out, but it was so stressful when we were there. And looking back on it, it's like the whole time we were like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Like, we're not a-hole people. We had money saved. Like, why didn't he tell us? And it ended up working out for the best because at the end, we got a way better loan amount and we still were able to get the house. We just had to wait an extra couple of weeks. And who knows what would have happened if we had gone into a contract with that lender. It ended up working out, but there were so many things that we wish we would have known while we were in the home buying process that I guess If we would have prepared a little bit more or had the mentality that we were going to do it, it may have not been such a shock. I'm going to tell you guys what I was wearing. So for my blush, I just used this one blush that I got from Stilazzi. I will have a link down below. It's just a really beautiful kind of like pinky blush color. And then for my highlighter, I ended up using the Makeup Revolution Triple Baked Highlighter Goddess of Faith. It's really, really beautiful. And for my lips, I have on the Rimmel London Cafe au Lait lip pencil. And then I'm going to use this Cinnamon Toast liquid lipstick. It's called a Sweet Cream from Jordana. So we are done with this makeup look. I will be sure to link all of the products that I use down below for you guys. I just wanted to finish off this like story time chat get ready with me on a more positive note. I do believe that everything does happen for a reason. In the end, we got it, and the house that you guys saw that we purchased is the house that we purchased. I can give you guys any tips if you're buying a home, if you're even thinking, scratching the surface of like possibly doing it. The first thing you should do is sit down with a financial advisor, because like I said, we had thought that we were going to do a house next year, not this year. And so we kind of had our finances in order, but we weren't really 100% sure what exactly they were going to be asking for, what they were going to be saying. And maybe if we had talked to the lender first, and a lender that actually knows what they're talking about, we would have been more prepared with that. Also, do not pay off anything during the underwriting process. There are costs that aren't factored in right away. So like we thought closing costs meant like the title search, the appraisal, insurance or something like that, radon testing and things like that. So all those tests are a couple $100, but they're not factored into like what you have to pay. And your realtor's fee is not factored in yet until towards the end. So if we could say anything, do not listen to being that like 5% down, 3% down, just have 10%. So let's say you want to buy a house that's, you know, $100,000. Make sure you have 10% of whatever the house is saved in the bank in liquid cash, just in case. Because whether worst case you get a 3% loan or a 5% loan, and then worst case scenario you have to pay closing costs, that's only 8%. And you're gonna have 10. So you're gonna be good. So if they would have told us from the beginning, like have 10% in liquid cash and don't move it, don't pay anything, we would have been A-okay. And we did have it in the beginning. It was just that we kind of assumed, because our lender didn't say otherwise, we kind of assumed that, you know, if we have already the amount set for cash to close, that it wasn't gonna change. And it changes last minute. And then the last thing and most important thing, do not do a fast close for your first house. Ours was a fast close because it was like a hard stop on like July 10th was when you had to close. So we had to do everything in under 30 days, which was incredibly stressful. Normally you're in the home buying process for a couple of months, and closing can usually be 30 to 45 to 60 days even. Ours was like, nope, it had to be less than 30. I think it was like 25 days that we had, or 20 or something like that. And then I guess you're gonna have to ask your lender if they decide to take holidays or vacations or what's going on, because we assumed that, you know, if we're paying you for a service, yes, we're not going to bombard you and sit on the phone with you every single night about everything. But when it's a big issue, like you gave us a $3,000 offset, I just kind of expected a little bit more customer service. So incredibly blessed. And even with all that stress, it was 110% worth it. We love our house. We're very excited to be here for the next couple of years. We're building equity. Like I said, we paid off some debt along the way too. It was just the best thing that could have happened to us. That is my story. It was, like I said, first time home buyers nightmare. Anything that could have gone wrong absolutely went wrong. If you have not seen any other videos about the house, I did do an empty house tour. I did do vlogging after that whole issue with Chaz went down. I think the last half of July, while we were doing the underwriting process, I kind of started vlogging. So I started vlogging that process, moving, packing, actual move-in day and stuff. If you have not seen those videos, I will link them down below for you guys so you can check them out. I really hope you guys made it to the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for your kind words on Instagram, on Twitter, here on YouTube. You guys have been really incredibly supportive throughout this entire process. Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, all that stuff is going to be left down below for you guys, as well as coupon codes to help you save some money. Stay safe, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.